Okay, so this is What's Up Over Edmonton for June of 2020. I have a picture of the old Queen Elizabeth Planetarium because the idea for putting on these sessions was that when the Queen Elizabeth Planetarium would reopen, we were negotiating with the Telesport of Science. We were going to run it to get one night a week where we would put on some programming for the public, and one Wednesday a month we would talk about what's up in the sky over Edmonton. And I was inspired to do this because when I was a kid and would go to the planetarium and they would put on a planetarium show, they would always have a segment where they would talk about what you can see from Edmonton. Another part of why I'm doing it specifically for Edmonton is because on the Weather Channel or on CBC Radio, they'll bring on a fella from Toronto, and he'll talk about stuff you can see in the night sky. And he'd give times, particularly in the summer. He would say, well, go out at 9 o'clock and you'll see this, this, and this. Where right now, of course, if you go up at 9 o'clock, you're not going to see anything because the sun's still up. So I wanted to make this specifically for what we're doing here in Edmonton. Most of the information I use comes out of the Observer's Handbook put out by the RASC. It is a wealth of material. It's 352 pages of just chock-a-block full of information. If you become a member of the RASC, you get one of these in the fall. It's just a great resource. So I am going to end my PowerPoint right now because I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to do the planetarium part. And for this, I use program Starry Night, and I'm not sharing the screen, am I?
Nope, I was just about to say, you're not sharing your screen.
Right, okay, here, hang on here. Okay, that. Okay, so share screen. Share. And I don't see anything. Do you see? No? Oh, wait. How about now?
Oh, something's happening. Yeah, there we go. You
okay.
got.
Okay. So this is Starry Night. This is a program I use for the planetarium portion. I'm going to turn off a few labels here because I had it blank. So this is the sky tonight. I'm going to label these constellations to give it their names. There we go. So throughout the month of June, because the sun sets at 10-ish, I'm making the sky as it appears at 11 o'clock. So in terms of planets, we only have the one planet right now, and that's Mercury. And it is low in the northwest sky after sundown. It reaches its greatest eastern elongation tomorrow, and it'll be 24 degrees from the sun. I'm going to mention the term eastern elongation because I had a fellow come to our observatory in Coronation Park where I volunteer, and he came looking for Mercury when he read that it was at its greatest western elongation. He came in the evening thinking western elongation, west means it must be in the west. No. When we speak of Venus or Mercury at greatest western elongation, it is in the morning sky. It's in the eastern sky, and it is west of the sun. So in the evening sky, we say it is eastern elongation. The planet is east of the sun. So he went away kind of disappointed because he wanted to see Mercury that day. And I said, well, you have to come back at 4 in the morning, but I won't be here. So we've got Mercury low in the northwest, and also right now, it is clear outside. I just looked out my window here in the basement, and it's clear. And at 11 o'clock, presuming it's still clear, you'll see the moon. I'm also going to label some stars, some bright stars here. Moon is in the constellation Libra, and it is above the red giant star Antares, which is the heart of the Scorpion, Scorpio. Antares is a red supergiant. It's means rival of Mars because its color matches that of Mars. So I'm going to go back here to Mercury. And now Mercury doesn't stay in the sky very long, so I'm going to advance this at one day at a time, and you can see at 11 o'clock it is lower and lower and lower.
And Jeff, it's worth saying here that as much as it is visible to the unaided eye, binoculars make it really easy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, Mercury is was probably the last planet that I ever saw visually because it is such a difficult target because it stays so close to the sun, and you have to get it when it's at a favorable elongation away. And by the 22nd at 11 o'clock, Mercury is gone. And we have the moon coming back. And then we're back into July. Now, there are a few comets in the sky right now. I'm going to reset this to June 3rd at 11 o'clock. And so I'm going to unstick these stars. It's kind of cluttering things up. So we've got Comet Swan, which is still Comet Swan. Last month when I talked, we were hoping Swan would put on a very good show, but it's not. It's you can see it in a small telescope, maybe a 4-inch or something like that, or with binoculars. But it's faded quite a bit. If I can get close enough, it is. In the constellation Aquarius. It's near the bright star Capella tonight. And if we advance, oops, I went too far. I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry about that. Let's go back. Advance day by day. It drops off. Let's go back to, let's just watch how it goes tonight. I'm going to change my timing here to minutes and let it run throughout the night. So here we are. It is midnight now. One in the morning. It's above the horizon the whole night. If you want to stay up really late, 3 in the morning when it finally gets kind of dark, although it's starting to brighten up again already, give it a whirl. And there we have the sun coming up again. So let's reset the time here. Oops. 11 p.m. Okay. The other comet that is still visible is Comet Pan-STARRS. It's way up in Ursa Major, the Big Dipper. And we will watch it over the night, and then we'll go through the so over a course of a single night, it'll stay above the horizon the entire night. Okay, and now I'm going to made it daytime, and I'm going to change it for a day. Here, we'll make it really wide so you can see both comments. So advancing through the month, you can see that Pan-STARRS passes right through the bowl of the dipper. And by the 1st of July, it's moving over, approaching Comerburn-Yeeses. Not very good with these pronunciations. So now there is Comet Atlas, but it's faded a lot. It was in May. We were thinking maybe it was going to be one of those comets you talk about for years, but it broke apart into 4 pieces and it's faded away quite a bit. So that's the comets. Now let's go to the morning sky. And I am setting this for 4 in the morning. And we go over, look into the east, southeast, reset the time. And for tomorrow morning. Okay, so we have got the moon setting. We've got Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, and also Neptune tonight. Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars are very easy to see. You can see them with the naked eye. Jupiter will be very bright. Saturn, not so bright. It'll be kind of a creamy color. And Mars, still not really bright. By October, it'll be extremely bright. But right now, it's still the Earth is still approaching it in its orbit. So it's still faint, but it is there, and it is red or kind of orangey color. Neptune, you need a telescope or a real good pair of binoculars to see it. So let's advance it through the month, and you can see the moon coming to join the planets over the next couple days, and also Mars is closing in on Neptune. Oh, there's also Ceres, which is the largest asteroid, a dwarf planet. Well, on the 12th, let's go back one. On the 11th and 12th, the moon passes between it and Mars. And by the 14th, Mars has gone past Neptune. And then by the end of the month, Uranus has popped in. Also, Venus, which was so prominent in our evening sky for many months, is popping up before dawn. Will be very bright in the northeast. So you have got a plethora of planets. You've got all the naked eye planets save Mercury, plus Neptune and Uranus, all in the same area of the sky. If you want to, get up early, have a look, and yeah, enjoy. Okay, Venus comments, and that's about it for the planetarium part. Unless, Alistair, have you got anything?
Sorry, Jeff, not for the planetarium side of things.
Okay, all right. How about that?
There we go.
There
we go.
Okay, my mistake.
Then you still have to press, slideshow.
Come on, slideshow. There we go.
I find everything is a lot slower than, obviously, the resources needed to run Zoom drain the computer.
Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, summer solstice, when the northern hemisphere has its maximum tilt toward the sun. It occurs this year on June the 20th. Sometimes it's on the 21st, sometimes it's on the 22nd. I believe it's going to be on the 20th for the next several years, if I'm not mistaken. And if you are at the Arctic Circle and above, the sun would never set. It would just whip around the horizon. And if you're down in the Antarctic, the sun would never rise and you'd be in perpetual darkness. Solstice has had great significance for ancient peoples. Stonehenge in England was built to indicate when the solstice would occur. They aligned the stones so at sunrise on the day of the solstice, it would shine through a slit and illuminate a stone whose name I can't remember, even though I was only there a couple of years ago and saw the darn thing, but I can't remember what it's called. Stonehenge isn't the only thing like this. On this continent, medicine wheels have served the same function. Giant calendars on the ground, all lining up with the solstice to indicate the time of the year, when to plant, when to hunt, etc. And these things in various forms are all over the planet, not just here in Australia and Africa. They built these indications to these giant calendars. So on the 20th, which we call the shortest night of the year, or the longest day of the year, the sun comes up at 5:04. It sets at 10:07, so we have 17 hours, 2 minutes, and 43 seconds of daylight. My mom, who was always a glass half empty type of person, would say, yes, it's the first day of the summer. The days are going to start getting shorter again. Now you'd think in winter, she'd say, first day of winter, days are going to get longer, but she didn't say that. She said, the days are going to get colder. So, but that was just my mom. Okay, now to talk about the moon for a minute.
What do you see when you look at the moon? When it's full and round, do you see a balloon? Does it look like a cookie with the bite taken out? What do you see when you look at the moon? It follows a path.
I've looked for a lot of songs about the moon, and this one by Fred Penner seems to be the most apropos. So, it is full on the 5th of June, and the full moon in June is sometimes called the strawberry moon. It's also called the rose moon, the mead moon, the flower moon, and the honey moon. I presume mead and honey is because it is at its lowest point in the sky from the northern hemisphere, and it has that golden hue for quite a while. As it comes up, the moon is usually orange or gold, and as it gets higher, it turns white. But in June, when it's riding so low on the horizon, it can stay that golden color for quite a bit longer. An interesting thing is the path of the full moon echoes the path of the sun 6 months hence. So 6 months from now, in December, the sun is roughly going to be in the same spot as the full moon, rising and setting in the same area of the sky. First quarter is on the 13th of June. Good time to get out a small telescope and do some observing. The first quarter moon is always a fascinating thing to look at. Or I'm sorry, last quarter. New moon on the 21st, and then first quarter is on the 28th. I meant to say go out and view the moon on the around the first quarter. The contrast and the shadows make the features on the moon really stand out. So We're going to go to the movies for a minute.
Where's
Oh, darn. Hang on.
the 10? Look around for the 10. Three, seven, seven. X marks the spot.
So you're probably wondering, what is that all about? Well, on June the 27th, the day before first quarter, X does indeed mark the spot in the form of the Lunar X. Now, the Lunar X is a feature that appears on the moon every month, but it's very transitory. It's a very short-lived feature. It only lasts about 4 hours. So we only see it about every 2 or 3 months. It has to happen when the moon is in our sky, not on the other side of the world. And what it is, it's sunlight illuminating crater tops around the crater Werner. And it's a nice observing challenge. The first time I saw it, I was expecting it to be quite faint, but it was actually, a fairly obvious thing to see. And it's just kind of a cool thing. So here's another picture I took. And there it is there. And in addition to the Lunar X, there's also a Lunar V, which is up there. Again, these are very short-lived features, about 4 hours. So, and here's a picture. I just put a camera up to an eyepiece and took a picture of this thing. And we've got, for a limited time only. So on the 27th, between about 7:30 and 11:30 p.m. Mountain Time, get a small telescope, or if you have very steady hands, a good pair of binoculars, and you will see the Lunar X, of course, provided it's not cloudy. The next opportunity to see it, I think, is near the end of August. Okay, now it's time for our little history section. It happened this month in space. So, in 1990, in April of 1990, NASA deployed the Hubble Space Telescope. Now, you're saying, why are you talking about it in June when it was deployed in April? Well, by the time June 1990 came around, and they had tested out the telescope, instead of getting pictures like this, they were getting pictures like this. They had ground the mirror incorrectly and introduced a condition called spherical aberration. The reason for this is a very long and involved story. In a nutshell, one of the devices used to calibrate the device that would grind the mirror was out of calibration. So the calibrator was out of calibration, and the mirror was ground wrong. Now, they did fix it in 1993. They sent up the shuttle servicing mission #1 and replaced some of the instruments with corrected lenses, and they also put in a device called the CoStars, which was like a pair of glasses which would have mirrors inserted into the light path going into the instruments to correct the problem with the mirror. And there you see it. So why am I talking about this? They could fix the Hubble because they could go outside the spacecraft and do extravehicular activities, which are Nowadays, very, very common. They do it at the space station all the time. In fact, without EVAs, they wouldn't have been able to build the space station. They have fixed satellites in orbit. They have recovered satellites in orbit. They've fixed the Hubble Space Telescope. But for the United States, for NASA, 55 years ago today, Ed White on the flight of Gemini 4 made the very first American spacewalk. Now, he wasn't the first person to venture outside. That was Alexei Leonov in March on Voskhod 2. But this is the one that most people think of when they think of a spacewalk because it was so well publicized and there were so many wonderful pictures. So I've got a little video here I put together. And this is just some edited footage taken with a couple movie cameras aboard Gemini 4. Ed White, as you can see, is leaving the capsule, or leaving the spacecraft. Jim McDivitt, the commander, stayed inside. And you can actually see the shadow of the camera that's taking these pictures against the hatch.
So Jeff, would some of those tubes being oxygen stuff, or is it just straight electrical and holding?
Yeah, the gold umbilical cord is providing power and oxygen to White. He's also carrying a gun with compressed nitrogen, and he used that to maneuver around here. And you're going to see him. He's going to kick off the nose of the capsule here right away. And you can see the gun there with a camera on top. Why am I pointing at the screen when nobody can see it? This is his gun, and this is the umbilical cord. He also had a backup supply of oxygen in his chest pack, and that also controlled the flow of oxygen and cooling and such. And that is the end. The actual video is actually quite long, but I didn't want to bore you. The Gemini 4 mission was something I always thought about when I heard a song which was very popular. It came out in 1965 called Eva's Destruction by Barry McGuire. And one of the lines in it was, "You may go out for 4 days in space, and when you come back, it's the same old place." And I always thought he must be singing about Gemini 4 because Gemini 4 was a 4-day mission. At the time, it was the longest American space flight at the time. Another thing that they started doing on the Gemini 4 flight, they started putting the American flag on the spacesuits. Before that, they never did. They had the NASA patch on the chest, but they never had the flag on the shoulder. And they did that because they figured, well, we're going to have lots of pictures. Might as well put the flag up. I had that Life magazine cover at the beginning. Oh dear. And that's just my reminder to check out heavensabove.com for any information on comments and stuff. And thank you, questions. But I stop share. When I was a kid, my parents subscribed to Life magazine. And there it is.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. I've got a few of these. Yeah. And,
you're not wearing white archival gloves touching that?
No. I keep them in a Tupperware, but anyway, whatever. I keep them in a Tupperware tub, sealed with some silica inside, just to keep them from going bad. So that's about it. If there are any questions, you can type it in the chat or put in a Q&A.
Yeah, that is, I love these little This Week in History and Space because uh, with me being just a few years younger, I missed a lot of that.
Ah, yeah.
And so like it's the sort of thing, where were you when they landed on the moon? It's like I was 5 and it wasn't a thing in our household.
Oh,
So
wow.
so I missed a lot of that, and I think the first real moon mission I saw was probably Apollo 17.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So reliving this is really kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, I remember the spacewalk. Obviously, there's no TV, but there was radio, and it happened at lunchtime here because, of course, in my day, everybody went home for lunch because the moms stayed at home. Dad went to work, mom stayed at home. So I came home from lunch, and this thing was on the TV, and they had some really bad simulation of some guy, probably in a Peter Pan rig, floating around, in front of the camera, trying to show what was going on. Yeah, so next month we're going to talk about when we saw 2 planets up close for the first time. Because as I explained in last month, I only picked days that are a fifth, like this was the 55th, or the 60th or the 40th or the 30th. I'm not going to pick the 39th or the 23rd, be every 5 years type of thing. So I guess we're not going to have any questions.
I was just going to do the one little keep an eye out on, so I'll share my screen.
Sure.
And it's right here. There we go. I think should be able to see a picture of the northern sky in twilight.
Oh, right.
And so these are the noctilucent clouds, which of course I mentioned during my segment last week. But just as a reminder, that this is the sort of thing probably your first glance at them will be something like this, where there's just these little faint twists. They look just like cirrus clouds, and when we've got the full moon, they'll look, cirrus clouds can look like noctilucents. And then as the displays get more and more impressive, you get to see sort of more details, very bright striations. And then you can get a very electric blue. And then finally, our huge display last year, it covered, literally it went past overhead and covered more than half the sky. And just all these ribbing features in there. Use binoculars if you have them. So keep an eye out for that. And with as sort of a reminder, every now and then someone will say, "Oh, I'll set my alarm for 4 o'clock." It's just like, oh, that's already too late. So if we've got a display like this going on, it will be in full swing at 3:20 already. So you need to be setting your alarm closer to 3 o'clock or even 10 to 3 to get to see something like this. And oh yeah, and Alan Dyer had already reported some visible from Calgary a couple of mornings ago. So they have arrived. The season has started.
Yeah, that's great. That's weird because I had that on my PowerPoint, but it never popped up, and I just kind of skipped over it. Because I had a couple of pictures, and I well, I was going to mention about the twilight. We don't get night here at this time of year. We get about an hour after the sun goes down. We get about an hour of civil twilight, about an hour of nautical twilight, and a couple hours of astronomical twilight, but never night, which is why we get to see noctilucent clouds. So I wonder where my pictures went. Maybe I deleted them when I was redoing my PowerPoint. Maybe I'll save it for next month. although we're getting near the end of the season. But I've seen some very good displays in July, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. It really trails off by 1st of August is basically your
we're done.
the end of your tail. There's the odd one after that. But,
yeah. All right. I'll save it for July then.
But yeah, the peak day is July the 1st.
Yes, I
Yeah,
remember
Canada
a
Day.
really, really good display one Canada Day. What was that? About 3 or 4 years ago?
And again about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Very, very nice ones.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thank you very much, Jeff.
well, thank you very much, Alistair, and thank you for anyone who's watching.
Lucas and Stephen, thank you.
Yes, and
Have a good night, all.
I will post this on our website after I edit out the preamble. When Alice and I were talking about stuff. So, okay, all right. And so I'll say good night. Thank you very much.
Okay, good night.